Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be doing some tips and tricks to try and make Black Ice a little bit more stable for you. The main reason that I'm doing this video is because a lot of people have commented in the time that I've had this channel to ask about how I keep my games so stable, because of the fact that I keep my version of Black Ice running for an hour, maybe even longer, without breaking, and that's purely based on some of the things that I do in this video. Now, results may vary, these things might not work for you, and I want to make it clear that I am not a member of the Black Ice modding team. If you have a specific bug or issue with your game, you need to report that to the Black Ice team directly. Now, I've got this page open here, as this is where you should be downloading the mod from. This has the most up-to-date version of the mod on it, and I'll include a link to this mod in the description. Please follow the installation instructions that are on screen now, and a Gamer 1745 did an installation video a pretty long time ago where they go into some detail on how to install it as well. Now, on top of that, this is how I have it set up. So my pathway is a D storage drive, Steam library, Steam apps, common, Hearts of Iron Free, TFH, and then I have my mods all listed in there. As you can see, I have multiple versions of this mod installed. I've never had an issue with any problems in relation to having multiple versions of the mod installed. I can still run version 9.11 with all the submods, and I don't have any problems. I would recommend installing the mod and, in general, Steam and your games on a storage drive rather than on your C drive. But if that's not an option for you, the C drive is always another possibility. So one other thing that's sometimes quite important to do is maybe get some tutorials. So I've already mentioned a Gamer 1745. I think he produces the best historical content on YouTube for Black Ice and Hearts of Iron Free. His videos are informative, he is a mod developer for the game, and he's done tutorials on things like division creation, buildings, and I've got a few of his most popular videos just up on the page here. So this is a bit of a shout out to his channel. I'm not saying that you go to him and ask him for specific advice about your game if you are having issues, but if you have a general question about Black Ice, about, you know, maybe division templates, how best to format divisions, I think he's a really good source of information. He answers all comments generally, and I find his input extremely useful. I've learnt a lot about Black Ice from watching his Let's Plays, and he's part of the reason why I play Black Ice now on YouTube. So I highly recommend that you give his videos a little bit of a watch. So as I say, the basics. Install the game correctly from the official Black Ice page. Don't go to the ModDB one, because that's an out-of-date version as far as I'm aware. As far as I know, the only place where the most up-to-date version that's hosted is on this page here. And as I've said earlier, I will include a link to it in the description. The download link is there, as well as the map cache in case you need it, and the installation instructions are pretty straightforward, but you need to make sure you download Podcat's latest exe. Now, touching on system specs, these are my system specs here. I don't have any specific system specs. My system is pretty bog standard, to be honest. I don't think you'll find a system that's worse than mine, to be honest. My system is, I think, a standard PC. I've got a pretty old i5 processor now, a 2TB hybrid drive, but I've also got an SSD where my operating system is. I upgraded to 16GB of RAM about a year and a half ago, and I've got a 1050 Ti Cerberus graphics card. So I haven't got the greatest PC in the world, and you don't need the greatest PC in the world to play Hearts of Iron Free Black Ice. But bear in mind, if you do have system specifications that are, you know, either slightly above the base game, or maybe even more than slightly, you know, maybe 8GB of RAM, or, you know, less than that, you might struggle a little bit to play Black Ice effectively, because it does have a lot of system input, so you need a decent processor and a decent amount of RAM to play it well. That's why Podcat's exe is there, because I think it's a 4GB patch, in the same way that you have to do a patch to Fallout New Vegas, because Fallout New Vegas is default 2 gigs, but you need 4 gigs to play it effectively. So there's a bit of a ramble about Fallout as well. I can't help but mention Fallout. So Let's have a quick breather. So one of the main things that I find that you can do to make the game a little bit more stable is have no more than 3 save games in your save game folder when you boot the game. The more save games you have in your save game folder, in my experience, the more likely the game is to crash and you're going to have problems saving. So try your best to keep the number of saves that you have in that folder down. There's no reason you can't, cut a save out of here. So let's say I wanted to cut, I don't know, Soviet Union, paste it somewhere else. Oh, there you go. I'm down to 2. And then I can always recut that and then put it back here if necessary. Just try and keep the number of saves in your folder down. The more saves you have, the more likely the game is to crash. I have no idea why that is. I can only assume it's because maybe there's bloat involved with saves. It could just be one of those things. And they're pretty large save files, to be fair, so just bear that in mind. So my patented double boot method is up next. Now, as I've put at the top here, results may vary, and we're also going back to the dark days of YouTube when everyone used a Notepad++ document to go through their tutorial videos, except I'm not setting my tutorial video to some dodgy metal song from 10 years ago. This is just my beautiful voice. So, the double boot method is what I do to try and make the game a little bit more stable. So I try and load the game, then I select the save that I want to load, I load it, once it's loaded I put time forward for about an hour or so, then I quit to desktop, I then reload the game, and this time round you just see that it boots a lot quicker. Normally on the first boot it takes about 2 to 3 minutes for me with my system specs. The second boot is normally less than a minute. You load your save game, and then put time forward at least an hour, but preferably 1 day, and then save, and then play from this point. Every time you boot the game for the first time for a session, please follow this method. And the reason that I do that is because for me, if I play the game from the first boot, I get a crash pretty much without fail. And that's one of the main reasons I get frustrated, is if I forget to do this, then the game crashes, because that's a major problem at that point. I start to just get loads of problems, and sometimes when I'm recording, if I forget to do this and I've recorded like a 45-minute episode, everything will crash. In fact, this happened the other day and it was rather frustrating. But please do the double boot method. It works for me. If it works for you, let me know. You can tell me in feedback and comments of this video if it works for you. Hopefully it does. Some miscellaneous additional points. Make sure you save before major events, i.e. the Fall of France, for 2 reasons. Troubleshooting, if you have a specific save or bug, sometimes you can send your save games to the BICE developers and then they can come back to you with an issue or a bug that is happening in the save game, so you don't have to sort of redo things, is the other major reason. So if you do have something and you know there's a chance you might crash, it's always a good idea to save before when you think you might crash, because saving regularly is just a good habit in BICE. Think about disabling monthly autosaves. Monthly autosaves are good on one hand because you're taking away that need to manually save. But if you're saving at the end of the month, that's normally when most of the decisions in BICE trigger. It's normally on a monthly, it ticks over to the 1st of July, for example. That's when all the decisions hit and all of the extra things that the AI is doing hit on that month as well. So I normally would recommend disabling autosaves if you know your system struggles, and manually saving maybe in the middle of the month or sort of a little bit before the end of the month, because then that way it's a little bit easier for the system to process. And then there's a reason why on my channel a lot of my Let's Plays of BICE don't go longer than 1943 or 44. The main reason for that is that if I get to 1945, my game normally starts imploding if there's lots of factions still going. If I'm playing as Germany and I've not defeated the Soviets by 1944, chances are I've probably lost the game, but it also means that the game's probably likely to run extremely slowly because of the amount of units that are being processed. And again, this depends on your system specification. Sometimes your spec might allow for this, sometimes it might not. Those are a few things that I do to try and, make my game run a little bit more stably. If you struggle with these things, just let me know in the comments. Let me know if they actually work for you. These are just things from my experience. I'm going to reiterate, I am not a member of the Black Ice modding team. I do not necessarily, these things aren't things that are coming from them. These are things I've just tried in my time to make the game run a little bit better, and they work for me. It could all just be coincidence. I just don't think it's likely with the fact that, especially the double boot method, it just works so much better for me than just running the game straight away. And I think that's pretty much everything. As I say, I've done this video more because I've had so many comments about it, and I want to put something out there that I can just link someone to and say, look, watch this, hopefully it'll help you. But thank you everyone for watching my series. The Soviet campaign is just sort of coming off the boil, so to speak, as I'm recording this. We're on lockdown in the UK, so it's a pretty good time to do a little bit of, at least, recording. So I'm hoping my videos are helping some people that might be in lockdown, get through that nightmare. Anyway, thank you very much to everyone that's watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of whatever series is coming out soon. I think the next video will be a Divide and Conquer video, because version 4 of Divide and Conquer just dropped today, so I will be going back to play my Moria campaign on there, so gonna get some orcish action going. So thanks again, bye bye.